Welcome to our next episode of Coach's Corner, brought to you by SimTrain, the world's favorite AI coaching solution. Well, at least the world's most passionate AI coaching solution brought to you today. And super excited, we have Liliana Lopez. She's Chief Technology Officer of LiveOps. And also, which is a BPO in the contact center CX space, and her whole career for the last 20 years or so, she's been at a very senior level role of building products, developing solutions, and bringing them out into the customer experience CX space. So, Liliana, thanks for joining us. Anything you want to add to your background that we might have skipped?
No, I think you summarized everything, and thank you for having me here.
Oh no, super excited. And one of the things I loved when I was reading about your background is, the amount of time and energy that you spend, not just developing products and solutions that are very customer centric, which is a really neat approach or novel approach, right? To make everything more customer centric, but the time you spend developing your teams, right? Developing the people who are providing those products, providing those solutions, and taking a lot of pride in how your approach to developing them. If you think about it, is there like a single coach or a single a mentor in your career that you can look back and that designed how you develop and build talent within your orgs?
Well, I have been fortunate to have many different mentors across my career, and from each one of them, I have learned a lot in terms of training teams, coaching teams, and develop them. And I will say that there are three main uh, lessons that I learned from each one of them, and it is ownership, accountability, and discipline. I will say that these three features were a constant in each one of them.
Nice. I love it. I love it. So, and one of the things I love about, talking with folks like yourself, and most people don't really realize this when they talk about BPOs, right? And business process
Mhm.
outsourcers, is you have so many clients in so many different industries, right? That are asking you for so many different types of solutions within the CX stack, right?
Yeah.
From CCaaS to learning management to performance management to QA, AQA, and all these different tools, right? It's almost like too much for so many people, but you learn so much and you have so much exposure. What do you do to like stay up to speed, or how do you keep coaching your skill set to make sure you're
Yes.
top of your game, Liliana?
I'm glad that you bring this topic because many people underestimate about BPO space complexity. So you are right. We handle different clients, different industries, different geographies. And every client is different, different tech stack, different security requirements, compliance frameworks. And our job in the BPO industry is to adapt to each one of our clients, but without losing our own governance model. That's the challenge. So, in order to keep updated, of course, I always encourage formal education, but something that is really, really helpful is to keep learning from our CX ecosystem. For example, I learn a lot from conversations with colleagues, with other leaders in the CX space with similar challenge. That is really helpful for me. Another part of the ecosystem that I use as a learning point, it's our partner and vendor ecosystem. So because they work with so many clients and across many different verticals, and the lessons there they learn are important for me and for our own BPO practice. Another actor in this ecosystem is clients. I like to stay close to the clients across the end-to-end journey. We learn a lot about friction points, challenges, main priorities. This is critical for me and my team. And last but not least, the interaction with the front line. That is critical. And I encourage members of my team to specifically target to learn directly from our agents. So
Nice.
I find that those four actors in the CX space are critical to keep us um, updated with the reality that they are facing.
Absolutely. And one of the things, right, because we are in the CX and contact center space, attrition is a pretty high number historically, right? And there's a lot of good technology and solutions that are addressing that today. But, some companies, it's north of 100% attrition annually. But one of the things that, you're proud of and you've done a great job is retaining a very high number of your own technology teams and team members. And I've seen some numbers greater than 95% retention rate of your own teams. I was curious, as you develop your teams and the talent within your teams, right, and keep them
Mhm.
connected to the team that you're building, what does effective coaching look like for you? How do you effectively coach them to want to stay and continue to be part of your organization, Liliana?
For me, coaching a technology team has three main pillars. The first one is clarity. You need to clearly set expectations for your team and each member of that team. The
Yeah.
other two pillars that I always encourage are context and trust, because when the team understands the big picture and the final goal that every single team has in the BPO space, that it is to enable agents to provide the best possible experience for our client customers. In our case, that enablement is based on technology. So if you build this foundation, they own the outcome. So in reality, my job is not to micromanage my team. My job is to enable and empower them by removing obstacles so they can focus on delivering great capabilities for the business.
I love it. What I love about that answer is it ties back to earlier when you said ownership, right? I want to make sure
Yes,
my team takes ownership, accountability and discipline too, but you're giving them, you're enabling them to take ownership, right? And
exactly.
how you build that. So, and I love, CX is about the best experience, and my team, they know the technology is what develops that, and so they own the outcomes with our clients. So, oh, that
Exactly.
those are great examples, Liliana. And how does it differ, right, from your team and what you do there and coaching them versus, some of the technology and the things at
Yeah.
LiveOps that you're doing to coach, those global CX agents who are the ones providing that experience for your customers?
So there are some principles that are similar. For example, setting clear expectations, feedback loops, that it's independent of the industry, the company, or the position. We all need clear expectations and constant feedback in order to succeed.
Yep.
But when we are talking about a VPO environment, the main difference that I see in terms of the agents, it's about the scale and the structure. So in agent environments, coaching has to be more systematic because think about it, you have thousands of agents interacting with thousands of customers for a single program, and you need to deliver that service with consistency. Now, the good thing is that now we have technology to enable those agents consistency. So, like for example, AI simulations, QA automation, those kind of technologies help us to enable that consistency across the program.
Yeah, absolutely. And being, a CTO, in this highly complex, BPO industry with all these different customer requirements and their own tech stacks, your passions around digital transformation, right? And driving that transformation for live ops, but also for your customers. What I found really neat when I was reading about your background is, your whole career hasn't been in just the tech space, right? You were doing, customer success, account management, even pre-sales, onboarding. You have a pretty diverse, background. Where did your inspiration come from to take that career journey to get you to where you're at today, Liliana?
So earlier in my career, I realized something very important, that technology is only as good as the changes you create or you enforce in the organization. So you can have the best platform, the latest and greatest technology, but if the organization doesn't change the way they work, nothing really matters. That technology that you are onboarding is meaningless.
Yeah.
So because of that, I made an intentional decision to keep always a very close relationship with our clients. So I like to be close to them across the journey. So in pre-sales, it's important because you learn about friction points, about priority, about trends in that specific industry. So that is very, very important to complement the work that we are doing. Then during implementation and onboarding, the solution that you created during the pre-sales may have some problems during implementation. And during this stage, you can learn a lot about how different organization adapts to change. And finally, in account management, this was very rewarding as well, because this is the kind of position where you get to see the outcomes over time. So if we talk back to digital transformation, the reality is that many people identify digital transformation as a technology initiative. But I don't agree. Technology is only one part of the equation. So when you have this kind of initiatives, it in reality, it's a people and adoption initiative. So my advice is that don't do that one on your own as the technology department. You need to engage your PMO as faster as you can in order to increase the possibility of success.
No, I love it. And by the way, that's awesome. And I love the fact that you invested your career to get to that point, right? And know what good looks like from a digital transformation, right? Because like you said, it's not
Yes.
just about the technology, right? It's the people and the process to drive adoption, you know, and even your answer before, right? What's the difference between a great CX org and your tech team? You're like, well, they follow the same
Yes.
thing: clarity, context, trust, right? Adopting the change, feedback loops. Those are all great advice, Liliana, for us. And what do you think, you know, as you think about it on your journey and where you're at today, and you guys are releasing some amazing technology solutions at LiveOps,
Yes.
and which is all customer consumable. What do you feel as though you know is the difference, right, from your lens between an average CX team and an average CX operations versus a truly high performing customer centric team or CX operation? What's the difference between average and the great ones?
Can identify two main differences. The first one is alignment. When the technology department and other support departments are considered like a side or a silo or a side function, things doesn't move fast. So there is a lot of rework, there is a lot of misunderstanding that slow down innovation. So alignment is the first one. And the second one is ownership. So ownership allows you to move fast, but alignment is what makes you move fast in the right direction. So those are the critical components that I have seen over and over again with high performing teams.
Yeah, I love it. And look, that accountability and that discipline that's needed that you shared earlier is such a great way to connect the alignment, right, and the ownership
Exactly.
between high performing teams. And going back to the technologies that you're using and it's part of your stack, if you will, you know, where do you see the connection between, you know, coaching technologies, right, and then the managers and the humans that coach, right? That enabling
Yes.
tech that helps them coach better and get higher outcomes and better performance? Where do you see the connection or maybe even the divide, if you will,
Yeah.
Liliana?
Well, I see them as complementary because technology can help scale practice and provide consistency, that consistency that we were talking about. But human coaching builds judgment, confidence, and empathy for our agents. So I see them working together as the best approach for any CX organization. So, for example, again, we have AI technology now for simulations, for QA. We have many different capabilities that we can implement in CX organizations in order to build this consistency across programs, across agents. But the human factor is still needed.
Oh, definitely. And it was kind of neat, right? And just tying into some of our favorite use of acronyms over here, like T3 and C2, right? Where we're training the trainers, right? Or we're coaching the coaches, right? Are you using any of these technologies not just to improve how your agents perform and the overall customer experience? You mentioned QA, simulation training. What are you doing to help the managers or the team leaders or your QA team to perform better? Anything in that capacity as well?
So this is great because, in my opinion, it is worth to invest on training and coaching trainers and coaches because that is the faster way to create a ripple practice in the organization. A ripple effect is
Yeah.
done when you invest the time and the resources to work with this kind of positions, because when they feel supported, they can create consistent development for agents at the scale.
Yeah, and look, I love the amount of passion that you have for not just technology being the underlying catalyst to help develop all of your people, and ultimately, you said it earlier, our job is to deliver the best experience, and as a tech team, that's our job. We drive that throughout LiveOps. So, that's it's just a great alignment. And when you think about, how you deliver technology, not just from here's the tech, but how do we adopt it? And how does that adoption tie into our work streams and how our teams work and then how our customers work? I think that's what, as you mentioned before, separates, the good and great technologists, right, in our
Exactly.
space. So,
Exactly.
is there, and I know you said, Dan, I invested my whole career in building that, right? So is there one lesson though, or maybe, something that you can think about that, during that journey helped guide your vision on your execution of what great CX and great technology means? Is there like a lesson that you picked up along the way or something that, you'd like to share with us that maybe could help us all, kind of think
Of
about how
course.
we align with our different departments and teams?
Of course. So my first role in the BPO space was actually as a workforce manager. So
Mm.
at that time, my boss took responsibility for the technology team. But after interviewing several candidates, he was not able to find the right fit for the organization. And he knew that I had a tech background already. So he asked me to step in and manage the team. It was a very small team, only two people,
Yeah.
the telecom engineer and a system slash network engineer. So after about 2 weeks, I remember that during one of our one-on-one meetings, I told him, like, honestly, that there are things that are not working. I felt that the team had lacked discipline, ownership, and even they were not that good, especially one of them from the technical perspective. But he gave me a lesson that stayed with me for my entire career. He told me, Liliana, not everyone on a team is going to be a superstar, but your job as a leader is to help them become at least a solid contributor. So you have to invest the time to bring out the best in them. And that lesson shaped the way I think about leadership. Building strong teams is not just about finding the perfect talent, it's about helping people grow and become better than they were yesterday. Again, for our agents, we can do a lot with technology, enabling them, but that human factor is still critical.
I love it, Liliana. Showing that you care and bringing out the best in them and the amount of time that you spend in your people, I'm sure is why you retain over 95% of your teams that you work with.
Yeah.
Really impressive. I'm curious, is there like a book that you would suggest for our listeners that helps you as you think about how you're coaching and developing teams and or from a technical or just anyway, just favorite book or even a movie that you want to share with us?
You know, I only read fiction. So
Awesome.
I can talk to you about my favorite book, who is The Count of Monte Cristo
I
by
love it.
Alexander Dumas. Many people see this story as a revenge story, but I see that differently. I see that one as a resilience story, and that is why I really love this book.
Oh yeah, and what I loved about that story is it's you're right. It started as revenge, but then it was like this coming of age. You watched him kind of grow and develop throughout his own journey to become a better
Exactly.
human while he was trying to put revenge. And you mentioned the author. I think you had it wrong. I thought it was Jim Caviezel. Wasn't that his book?
No, it's Duma.
No, I'm teasing. He was the actor in the
Oh,
movie.
oh my goodness.
I didn't
Ah,
read.
I haven't seen the movie. I'm
Oh my
sorry.
goodness, it's a good movie. I haven't read the book, right? So we have to
Okay.
each do the other and then compare notes. So I thought it was a great movie. You thought it was an amazing book, and I think we're both right, Liliana.
I have homework for the weekend then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fun one. Anything, do you watch many movies other than
Um,
this one this weekend?
I love thrillers.
Yes.
Yeah,
What's your
yeah. And I
favorite
read a lot
thriller?
of fiction about thrillers as well. So
Excellent.
I'm more like a book person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome. Well, that was a good one. Count of Monte Cristo. Cristo. I'm glad you shared that with us, and the lessons that you've learned in your career. I'm having so much fun doing these coaches corners because it's like the amount of value that you shared with our audience today, and in some of the things, from being a great, coach around ownership, accountability, and discipline, but building great teams by providing clarity and context and trust. It's like, but how you did that is and sharing those stories. Thank you so much for joining us
No
today. I really
problem.
appreciate it.
No problem. And before we wrap up, I would like to close with like my thoughts about AI and customer experience. So I do believe that customer experience is still a human business. Technology and all the great capabilities that we are adding help us scale, but the great outcomes are still coming from well trained and well coached people who understand the customers and feel confident about the delivery.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that all your investments in technology are to help those people get better, right?
Exactly.
Not just the agents on the front line, but their managers, their coaches, and your team too. It's like who are building
Exactly.
those products.
Yeah, it's an effort across the organization.
Excellent. Awesome. Thanks, Liliana, and thanks everyone for viewing. Until next time, have a great luck coaching and developing your teams.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.